Hello everyone, welcome to today's expert webinar on reading data from different sources in Python. My name is Siddharth and I'm from Spring People. Spring People is India's largest enterprise training provider. Today's session will be conducted by Ms. Vijay Lakshmi GM, who is a corporate trainer with over 20 years of experience in corporate training, and she's a subject matter expert on data science and other technologies. She's been associated with Spring People for quite some time now, and hope you have a wonderful session ahead with us. So without further ado, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Siddharth. First of all, good afternoon and welcome to all the participants and attendees who have joined this webinar. Yeah, we will start with the topic. This is one of the important topic in Python, data extraction in Python from various sources. Hope all of you know Python is a general purpose programming language. In Python itself, we cannot store the data. Always to the Python application or to the Python environment, the data will come from external sources. So what can be the external sources? There are many external sources are there from where the data will come to. We will actually get the data to Python environment and we will use that data to do the analysis and do the further processing. So that today the main focus will be based on like how literally, what are the data sources? What is a data source? From which are all the data source we can read the data to Python environment, and in Python what all modules are available basically to read the data from various sources. So we are just going to have a discussion on these topics. Okay, so I'm audible to all of you. Please reply to me in the chat box. Yeah, you are free to ask the questions. Okay, please post the questions which will be taken up during the QA session. Yeah, to start with the content of today's agenda will be we will like to know like what is a data source and types of data sources in Python. Data extraction, how we will going to extract the data, how we will going to extract the data, how we will going to extract the data. So all these things and what are the Python modules available to extract the data. So these things, so we will going to discuss in this current agenda, today's agenda. First of all, now we are starting with basically what is meaning of what is the data source. Any answers for this question? What is a data source? What is a data source? What is a data source? Any answers? Any answers for what is data source in Python? Anybody? Okay. See, basically the data source is nothing but it is a place or a location where the data will be stored on a permanent basis. And from that specified location, so we will going to extract the data. So, and after extracting the data, so what we will do? So we will use the data for various purposes as per our project requirement. So this is the basic definition of what is a data source. When it comes to the Python data source, to Python, we will be able to read the data from multiple data sources. Some of the main data sources are text files, CSV files, comma separated files, Excel files, RDBMS databases like MySQL, Oracle, SQL Server, and also we can read the data from websites. That is what we call web scraping, and from HTML pages. We can also read the data from XML format and also the JSON format. So these are the various sources, data sources from where, so we will be able to read the data to the Python environment. So you are able to follow. Please, all of you, raise your hands. You are able to, you understand? Participants, please respond in the chat box. Please respond in the chat box. Okay,
Yeah,
good.
ma'am, you can see them. You can see them in the questions tab as well. Their response. Their
Okay,
response.
I'm seeing. Yeah, I'm seeing.
Okay.
Next, what we will do? So we will proceed with the next part. So what is the next part? In the next part will be what are the major data sources. From there we are extracting the data. And what is the Python module, explicit Python module we will be using, specific Python module that we will be using to get the data, to read the data from those sources to Python environment. Suppose if you want to read the data from a CSV file, so we will be using the in Python we have two modules. Either we have a CSV module, and or we can go for the Pandas module. So basically, what is a module? Module is a group of functions. A Python module contains set of functions. So that will be used basically to read the data from a function that will help you to open the file and also to read the data and also to close the file. To read the data, what all functions are required? So all those functions will be specified by the module. To read the data from a JSON file, in Python, we have a JSON module. To read the data from MySQL database, MySQL is an RDBMS database. We have a MySQL connector module. XML, so yeah, we have an XML module. And web scraping, to read the data from a website or from the HTML pages. So we are using two important modules like URL lib module and BS4, that is beautiful soup. So these modules we are using. So these are the dedicated Python module what we are using to read the data from explicit data sources, to read the data from explicit data sources. So explicit data sources, to read the data from explicit data sources. So we are using these modules. Then we will proceed with the next part. So in the next part, what we are seeing? In the next part, we are seeing the basic steps you need to follow whenever you want to extract the data from the external data source. So what are the basic steps you are supposed to follow? First step is that you have to import the required modules to your Python program or Python application. What module you are supposed to import? depends on from which data source you want to read the data. After importing the required module, the next step that you have to follow here is you have to open the data source file. See, without opening the file, we will not be able to read the data. Like without opening the book, we can't read the content or topics from the book, correct? Like that, to read the data from any file, any type of data source file, first step is, step 2 is you have to open the data source file. After that, what we are supposed to do, we have to read and process the data. The next step is read and processing the data. And the last step will be, we have to close the file. So even I have written a schematic diagram where you can see, I have opened the function, we have opened the file, we have to process the data, and later we have to close the file. So these are the three to four basic steps. These are all common steps you need to follow to read the data from any data source through a Python application. Through a Python application. I am audible to all of you? Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, next what we will do, so we will proceed and we will check how to read the data from the, we are starting with a text file basically. So what is a text file? Text file is nothing but it is a very basic file, or it is a notepad file where we will be storing our raw data. Like you can see in on my screen currently it is coming up. I have put a sample text file data for your reference. So I have some data there. The first row is a column heading. Always the first row will be the column heading generally. And then after that, the data will be there. From the second row onwards, the actual data will be there. How to read the data from this text file to the Python environment? So that is what we are seeing in the next slide. So if you see the left side, I have written a short Python code to read the data from the text file. To read the data from a text file or for any sources, very important point you have to remember here is we have to use the exception handling concept. The try and the except concept of the blocks we need to use. Why? Sometimes what happens, whenever you are reading the data from any external source, the file should be available in that location. If the file is not there, there is a chance that it will throw the exception. To handle the exception, it's always a good practice. You go with try and the except block. Okay. Now let me explain you how to read the data from a text file. To read the data from a text file, you need not import any specific module here. Okay, no need of importing any specific module. You can see over there, that's why I have not imported any specific module. Open function will be used. What is this open function? Open function will help you to open the file, and this function will take two parameters. What are the two parameters it is taking? One is the file name. From which file, text file you want to read the data, please give the text file name, and mode is very important. So we want to, now we have to read the data. So the R means we are opening the file in a reading mode. The reference, what will happen, will be stored in the variable FO. After reading the data, after opening the file, the next step, what I am doing here, we are reading the data from a file. And why I have used for loop? because I am reading the data line by line, one line at a time from the file. So that's why what I'm doing, I am using a for loop. After reading all the data, I need to close the file. Suppose if the file is not there in the specified location or in the specified folder, what will happen? It will throw the exception. So then you will get a message, file not found. And when this particular program is executed, what kind of output you will get? Output also I have given in the next picture. I have shown you the output also. This is how, so we can read the data from a text file, and then we will, in this current example, simply I am displaying the data, whatever I read from the text file. We can even further process the data as per our requirement. Is this clear to you? Okay. Any doubt you have? I am audible to all of you? Okay, good. Okay, the question has come, if F4 file is not closed, what will happen? In the learning environment, nothing will happen. But in the real-time environment, it leads to resource leakage. Okay, so therefore, always it is mandatory, whatever the file you open, so it should be, it's a good practice is that always you have to close the file. Hope this part, all of you understood this one. You are able to understand what I am teaching you, or what I am explaining you. Can you understand? Okay. After this, what is the next source from where we are reading the data? So we are reading the data from a CSV file. First of all, you have to understand what is CSV. CSV stands for comma separated formats or comma separated values. So that is what we call it as the CSV. And the CSV file, you can open the CSV file in the Excel format. You can open the CSV file in the Excel. You can open the CSV file in the CSV file in the Excel application. You can open the CSV file. Most of the time, we always read the data from the CSV file to the Python environment or to the Python program. How you will going to read the data? So as I told you, we can read the data from CSV file to Python in two different ways. First one is by using the CSV module. So CSV is one of the inbuilt module in Python. So what this CSV module contains? Again, it contains the functions used for reading the data to the Python in a CSV format. You can see on my screen. So what I'm doing here, I'm reading the data. I'm opening the CSV file again in the reading mode. And here we have a different function to read the data. What is the function that we have used? Reader function. So here we have used a reader function. So using the reader function, so what we are doing here, so we are reading the data. So using the reader function, okay. So now what we are doing, we are using here the reader function. So using the reader function, so you will be able to read the data. And again, whatever the data that is coming to the CSV file, so that from CSV file that I have stored in a variable, and then we are printing it. Again, here I have used the for loop because I want to print the data row by row. And how the output will come, you can see in the next picture. So in that screenshot, you can see the output. So in that output, how the data is coming. The output is coming row by row, it is reading. And when it comes to Python, the row is presented in the form of a list. This is one way of reading the data to the Python environment from a CSV module. The other way of reading the data is using the Pandas module. So if you take up the Pandas module, you need to import the Pandas module. Under Pandas module, you have a function called inbuilt function called read underscore CSV. Read CSV is a function. It's an inbuilt function from in the Pandas module. And whatever the data that you read from a CSV file, in what format that data will be stored in Pandas, it will be stored in the form of a data frame. What is a data frame? Data frame is one of the Pandas type where the data will be mainly used to present the data in the tabular format. Generally, whenever you read the data from a CSV file or from the Excel file in Pandas, the output will be stored in the data frame format. So data frame is a Pandas type where that is mainly used to store the data in a tabular format in Python environment. So this how to read the data from the CSV format, it is module, it is clear to you? Any doubt you have? So this part is clear to all of you? Okay. So next, if this is clear to you, we will proceed with the next format. The next format is JSON format. What is JSON? So JSON is one of the format that will be used to store the data in the dictionary format. So what is a dictionary format? Hope all of you are aware of. In the dictionary format, the data will be stored in the key and value format. Okay, so it will be stored in the key and value format. It will be stored in the key and value format where each value will be associated with a predefined, will be associated with a key. Whenever you want to extract a value or whenever you want to work with the value, so we will be using always, we will try to get the data based on its key value. In the JSON format, the data will be stored in the key value format. So how to read such JSON data, how to read such JSON data to the Python environment. Again, in the Python, we have an inbuilt JSON module is there. So this JSON module contains the required functions used for reading the data from a JSON file. As usual, again, you have to follow the same step. First, you need to open the file. After opening the file from the JSON module, you have to use a function called load function. So what this load function will do? Load function will help you to load all the data from JSON file. It will copy that to a Python environment. When the JSON data comes to Python, in what format this data will be presented or it will be stored in Python environment? it will be stored in the form of a dictionary. What is Python dictionary? Hope all of you know. Python dictionary is the one where the value will be stored in key value format. When the JSON file data comes to Python environment, in what format it will be stored? It will be stored in the dictionary format. So all of you followed this one, JSON thing? Any doubt you have? Please answer to me in the chat box. Sorry, this question panel. Followed all of you? Okay. So next, what we will do? So we will see the next source from where we can read the data to the Python environment. So what is the next source? The next source will be the XML file. So what is the XML file? XML stands for Extensible Markup Language. It is one of the format mainly used to store the data so that we can exchange this data or we can read the data from one application to another application, mainly to export the data between the two different applications, which is developed using two different technologies. So we will make use of the XML file. Whenever you store the data in the XML format, basically what we will go in what format it will be stored? It will be stored in the form of a root child, parent child, or in the notes format. The data will be stored, and we need to specify our own elements or tags to describe our data. Always in the XML file, we are starting with the root node. For example, in my current example, always the XML file will start with the root node. In the root node, in this current example, what will be the root node? The food tree is the root node. Under each root node, so you will find many child nodes are there. Many child nodes are there, and inside each node, we can also have the attributes. See, for example, in this particular example, food tree is the root node. And what is the food? Food is the child node of the food tree node. And all other things, whatever I have given inside, like item, price, description, calories. So these are all the child nodes for the food node. And in the item, I have given something inside the angular bracket, that is attribute. Okay. So hope the XML format, you need to know the basic structure of the XML file. So even before you start reading the data in the Python. So then in the XML format, how we can read the XML data to Python environment? In Python, we have a separate module is there called XML module. So that XML module contains the functions. So using those functions, we will be able to read the XML data. So we will not say that we are reading the data from XML file. We will say that we are parsing the data, parsing. We are parsing the data from XML file. We never say we are reading the data. We say we are parsing the data from the XML file. And you can see here, so basically everything, first you need to have a good understanding of basics of XML to read the data from XML to Python. Here we are after getting the basic reference of parsing, so we have to get the reference of the root node. After getting the root node reference, so we can navigate to reach the child nodes, to reach the inner child nodes. So what we can do, first we need to get the reference of the root node. After getting the reference of the root node, we can use for loop to iterate through the main root node and also its child root nodes, and we can extract the data. So whatever the data that comes from XML file to Python, so it will be a raw data. Further, we have to refine the data. To bring the data into the structured format. Yeah, the next source from where we are reading the data will be RDBMS databases or RDBMS database. Hope all of you know the RDBMS databases, right? What all RDBMS databases you are aware of? Like we have MySQL, we have MySQL, we have SQL Server, we have Oracle. So many databases we have. We have many databases. So in that, from that data source, again, we will be able to read the data to the Python environment. I told you, like basically we directly we cannot read the data. So what basically we can do here is, what we need basically here is, we need a connector. See, previous examples you have seen the other like XML, JSON, we didn't use any connector there. Directly we used to open the file, correct? But here we need a connector. A connector is required to connect Python application to the backend database like MySQL database. And each database will have its own connector. Each database will have its own connector. Okay, so this is the schematic diagram for that. And next, this is one of the screenshot. Like you can see, I'm just written a SQL query to read the data from a quotes table. And below that, I have given two sample rows are visible to you. And this is the Python program. In this Python program, what basically I have done, so I have imported the MySQL connector. So prior to using or importing this connector, you need to manually install this connector one time installation. You have to manually install the connector. After installing the connector, so then this particular connector contains the functions or the methods that will help you to connect Python to the MySQL database. For that, we use connect function, and whenever you want to connect to the external data source, like how we give file name, here we have to give the server name or the system name based where your MySQL server is installed or from where you are fetching the data. And also you need here user ID and password, dedicated user ID and password to connect to the external database. And you have to give the database name or the schema name where your table is residing. This is what we call it as connection string. After successfully setting the connection string, we have to open the connection. And any RDBMS database will understand only one language, that is SQL. So we are sending our SQL queries. So after sending the SQL query, so we can fetch the, after sending the SQL query, so what we can do, so we can fetch the data. This is what we are doing, once you send this query to the database, your database will process the query and it will give you the data. So that output also you are seeing down. So it will help you to fetch all function. Basically will help you to get the data from the external data sources. Hope this all of you have followed this one. Understood how to read the data from external data sources. Okay. Yeah. The last part of it is like we are reading the web scraping. See, what is this web scraping? Web scraping is nothing but reading the data from the website or from the HTML pages. Okay. So, or from the your any external websites by giving URL. So that is what, and that data first we will get into the Python environment from any websites or from any HTML page. Initially, the data will be in the raw data format. Initially, the data will be in the raw data format. So that we can convert it into structured format in Python. So this is on my screen. You are seeing one of the website data. So all the data we cannot do web scraping. The data format should be like somewhat like this. It should be a tabular data. Then what we can do, we can use two important Python module. One is URL lib module. Other one is BS4. That is under BS4 you have beautiful soup module is there. We can make use of these two modules to read the data from any websites or from any web pages into the Python environment. Here it is very important that you have to give the URL. The path should be correct. URL path should be correct. Then after the then directly from a Python code, system should be connected with internet. Directly it will go to that site and it will help you to fetch the data. That data will come to Python environment, and what we can do is we can just in this particular example I'm just showing the raw format. So how we have got the data in the raw format. So this is just one screenshot is that what I have mentioned. Once the data comes to Python environment like this from various data sources, what we can do, just like that we cannot use that data. That will be a raw data. That is the first step. Once you get the data to the Python environment, what you can do basically, you can process the data. By using various methods, you can process the data and you can bring the data back to the structured format. Only if you have cleaned the data and if your data is in the structured format, you will be able to use the data, or you will be able to extract some meaning out of that data. Okay, so now so these are to have a quick recap. What we have studied today. So we have studied like how to read the data from various data sources to Python, starting from a simple text file to a very complex XML file, JSON file, web scraping, and the external database, CSV file, all those things. Hope you have understood all the topics, whatever I have covered right now. Okay. Now it is thank you. It is you to Siddharth.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am, for those valuable insights. I'm sure the participants would have found this session highly informative. Guys, if you're interested in learning more about Python courses, then do check out our super discounted trainings that we offer at Spring People. You can connect with us via the details given on the screen. You can also visit our website www.springpeople.com to know more about the courses that we offer on various data science training. These trainings can be leveraged online from the comfort of your home and are flexible to suit your requirements as well. We can also schedule a private training batch for you if you're interested. Now we'll jump to the Q&A session where ma'am will answer all your questions, and let's go ahead, ma'am. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Siddharth. Okay, now forum is open to the questions. Yeah, correct. So you can start posting the questions.
Guys, feel free to ask your questions in the questions tab. We'll be very glad to answer them all.
So how is the session? Please give the feedback. No, you can you uh,
Yeah, we have a question from Sudarshan. He's asking, in web scraping, performance is sometimes main issue. How to handle it?
yeah, see, web scraping, basically what will happen is your content on the website is very much dynamic. Okay, so always see, today you have written a script to write to extract the data from one particular website. Okay, so then basically what will happen is tomorrow the content may change on that particular website. That time your code will not work. So that is one of the major limitation what you have in web scraping is that only. Then when this web scraping will be very useful to you or helpful to you, and what scenario you can apply this web scraping in a very effective manner is, you should know that in that your website the data will not undergo frequent changes, or data format will not undergo frequent changes. In that kind of scenario, web scraping will be a very good option for you. Otherwise you have to go with the alternate method. Web scraping will come to you with limitations. Yeah, the next question coming up is, can we read the nested JSON? Yes, it is possible. You can read. I have shown you only the simple way of doing it. Yes, we can read the data from the nested JSON file also. It is again a specific related to a particular application. Hope that answer is okay. Can we see in the live environment? What is live environment? I'm not getting.
There's another question from Soumya Das. She asks, what is stud underscore det attribute in JSON?
What is?
STUD stud underscore det command in JSON. You'll
One
see it in the.
second.
Yeah.
It is there in my PPT.
No, 1 second.
Oh, sorry, 1 minute. Oh, this is the one what she was asking, JSON. Oh, okay. So that is the main JSON object name. Here we are starting now like a table name. In SQL you have table name, no? It is that starting point of the JSON, this main object name. That is student underscore D, it is this. So whatever you are finding on my screen, no? So that one, see, you need a reference, right, to read the data from that JSON hierarchy. That main reference I have given you. That is the thing. Student underscore, that is student underscore detail. That is the JSON main root name. Which is live and changing every 10 minutes. Can we use regex or keywords? Yes, regex can be used. But it should be applied to the context. Like it should be relevant to the context. Yeah, regex we can use. Generally on a text file, we can use a regex. Whenever you are reading the data from this one text file, we can use the regex. Regular expressions we can use. Even we have in Python also. Can we read the data from multiple sources? Yes, it is possible. You can read in one single application. You can read the data from multiple sources. But that should be logically connected. Okay, that you should know. That you should have, that the data, whatever you are reading from various sources, you should ensure that at the end, that data will be logically, it will be connected. So that is important. You can read the data to multiple environments. You can read that. You can read that. Yeah, Excel sheet also we can read directly from Excel. Also we can read the data in Python. For that again a separate module is there. For that again separate module is there. For that again a separate module is there. Excel sheet also we can, individual sheet also we can read the data. Yeah, PPT, yes, I think you will get it. Siddharth, somebody is asking for PPTs, whether PPT will be
Guys,
shared.
will be sharing the recording of the entire session with you. You can refer the PPT from there.
Okay. So I think that is answered.
We have one more question from Saloni Singh. She asked, the data file we are reading in Python should be stored on our local machine only or what?
Yeah, there are two things are there here. Whatever in my example, whatever the files I have stored, all are in the same folder from where I have stored my Python file, local system. You can also store the files in a separate folder in the local system. Or if you have the right to access, you can also connect over the network and you can access the files, provided you should have proper permission to access the files from other locations and other sources. It is possible. Proper path should be set. If you give the path properly, then it will work.
One more question we have received. It is, what is the most commonly used editor for Python?
Commonly used, okay. See, always to work with Python, since Python is a open source, so people are using multiple editors. Commonly using, generally, if you want to start learning Python, so nowadays I have seen many people, they'll start with Jupyter, they'll start with Spider, and they will use this one, PyCharm. Some they use in VS Code. There are multiple editors out there. According to my experience, those who want to start first to learn Python, you start with the basic editor, basic IDLE. So that will be the right choice. And later, after a few days, like once you reach concept, a kind of little intermediate and advanced topic, you can use PyCharm. A pie chart will be helpful for people who wants to use Python in future for automation, or those who wants to use Python for web development. For them, PyCharm will be the ideal editor. And those who wants to use, have intention to use Python in a real-time web analytics, data analytics and all, better to go with the Jupyter, Spider, Anaconda editor. You install, Anaconda is a suite, it will come with all those things. And for data analytics, if you use Anaconda, you have another advantage. All the data science related libraries like NumPy, Pandas, Seaborn, Matplotlib, SciPy, all these are inbuilt in Anaconda platform. They are inbuilt in Anaconda platform, so that you no need of installing the library separately, module separately. That they can use Anaconda. That these are the general guidelines to be followed to go for the editors. Wherever people are using Python for web development and automation, I have seen in companies they are using PyCharm. PyCharm will come to you with the two options like commercial edition, and they are using commercial edition with all good features. It will come. And those who are working with analytical part, they are using Jupyter and Spider. Hope that is answered. I answered your question.
Guys, we'll take a final few questions. If you have any, please feel free to ask them. We have got one more
Do you
question.
have the example for SQL query? Yes, I have already added in that PPT. SQL query I have shown. No? SQL query, and it has been answered. A for loop you should, if you know the basics of how to use for loop in Python, the same for loop will be used here, either to iterate on the Excel file, or to iterate line by line, to iterate in the text file, or on the JSON node, okay, XML nodes. For loop will be used. The main intention of using the for loop is to get to retrieve one item at a time. For that we are using the for loop. How to skip the line, you have some next function is there, so using that you can skip the things. You have any further questions? Siddharth, you are finding anything?
Yeah, there is one question. Can you explain something about stream data?
Stream data, that is the text file data. That kind of stream data concept is not there in Python. Whatever we are reading from the text file, no, the same way you can also read the stream data.
Yeah, and we've got last
This
two
the
questions.
stream concept you have in Java, basically. In Python you don't have.
Okay. So we've got last two questions now. One is it possible to read data from protected file?
Is it possible to read the data from the protected file? No, it is not possible. You have to see, generally anything it is protected, we cannot read the data.
And the final question for today, through web scraping, can we fetch data from websites like Shopify? If yes, will it be best in terms of performance?
I told you, no, I think that question has been already answered, Siddharth.
Okay.
So wherever there is no frequent changes there in your website data, you know, always the web contents are dynamic, correct? No. And if you are reading from a dedicated source, always web scraping will be the right option. Otherwise.
Okay. Okay, so guys, seems like we've covered almost all of your questions that we could find out. And given the time constraint, I think it's time that we take a leave from here. So thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Hope to see you at such events in the future. We'll be coming up with our next expert webinar soon. A recording will be shared with everyone. Signing off on behalf of Spring People. So until then, take care, stay safe, goodbye.
Okay, all the best to all of you. Thanks for joining the session.